Okay, great. So one of the main things to get out of this, I guess, is just that this website, handsondataviz.org, has a ton of great tutorials about all kinds of different data visualization strategies. And they're always, well, I don't know about always, but they tend to be free, open source, or something along those lines. And so accessibility is really one of their biggest goals with creating these. And I have always meant to look the people up and really haven't. So I can't give you too much more background on them or the organization, but there's a lot of really good demos in here. And so I was going to look at this one or talk a little about one that I've used a couple different times in different ways under their Leaflet Maps templates. And so you can see there's a lot of different different types of examples for leaflet maps here that they have. And the first one is the one I'm going to talk about, leaflet maps with Google Sheets. But just looking through, so leaflet story maps with Google Sheets, I haven't used this, but we're all familiar with the idea of story maps, probably. If not, it's as you see in this little demo, it's kind of a map on one side that connects with photos, media, etc., in kind of a story mode on the left, or however it's configured. So I haven't gone through this one, but it seems like a pretty good one. And one thing that I like about their work is that they use this connection between Google Sheets and Leaflet Maps a lot, which is really nice because you can share a leaflet or you can share a Google Sheet with anybody or with everybody, and then they can update it. And those updates then are immediately shown on the map. So I was just going to go through this one, Leaflet Maps with Google Sheets. And it has a similar loading to ArcGIS Online, I've realized, but it's technically different. So this is their demo here. And before going into it too much, I think what I'll do is I'll just give a little description of the way I first used it or came across it was for a hackathon here in New Orleans a while ago. And there was a organization, NOSCR, SCR, can't recall. I may have a better description. New Orleans Summit on Compassion and Resilience. So in this hackathon, we were, and this was a couple of years ago at a place called the Blue House, kind of a community organizing center in New Orleans. And so we wanted to make a map, a web map, and showing different trauma support services throughout the city. And they had this specific requirement for the project where they were having a summit, and they wanted to have people sign up and then fill out a form and then have all their information show up on a map. And so they wanted to kind of be collecting the map data in real time and creating a kind of a summary of who all was at this summit. So in the end, what we developed was, again, based very, very much right off of this tutorial and hosted on GitHub Pages. So it's a website, but it's completely free. I guess, wait, something's going on. And so this is a little bit, there are a couple of features that we kind of added extra, but in all, this is a pretty good demo of what the tutorial brings you to create. So it is a few different layers. You see neighborhood boundaries here. Oh, okay, and then the council, youth population. So we added a polygon of the youth population, and this is, you know, an overlay option within this tutorial or within this little framework they have set up. You can add extra overlays if you upload them as correctly. So in this case, we thought it would be relevant to have the youth population, as these are specifically youth support services. Turn that off. It's quite slow, isn't it? I think that's probably the size of the. This may be a little more ambitious of an overlay than is recommended, because really the best thing here is just being able to collect points and then and display points in a nice way. So these were all different service providers that had shown up to the summit. So we categorized them in this community-based intermediary justice system. This is, you know, the special information here was coming not from us who set this up, but from others. And then another nice thing they have is the ability to just throw in basically the attribute table for this points layer. And this is, it was nice, extra little piece, I think. You see a lot of quick make a web map, but options, but this was one thing that I liked about this a lot, is a very, very clean, simple little sortable table, which you can search also. It gives a different view, a table view of all the points here. So to back up a little, I guess we're starting on the front end of this. And the reason I'm starting on the front is that, frankly, this tutorial is really good, and it's really detailed. So if you go through this by yourself, I'm sure you'll slowly be able to figure out, because there's a lot of pieces, but I even redid it for a different, or did parts of it for a different thing recently, and it was really good. So at any rate, from here, this is the front end. This is what you would show, you know, your clients or your school project, or, you know, term paper, thesis, etc. This would be maybe one of the outputs would be a map like this, which anyone can access. And I'm trying to move this Zoom bar around. Sorry if that's distracting. Okay. Now it's stuck. Okay. Whew. Okay, so next what I'll show is where what the Google Sheet looks like. So maybe you would give this to an admin, for example, or yourself, if you are the one administering this. And so just like I mentioned, and like they say here, Leaflet Maps with Google Sheets. So all of this information that you see on the map, this is all stored in a Google Sheet, or almost all. We'll get to the almost later on. But by and large, this is all stored in a Google Sheet. And this is a template. We'll see their template in a little bit, but the template has a lot of different tabs. You'll see down here, there's many different tabs. The most important one, I think, or maybe the best place to start describing, is this one called options. So they've essentially pulled out all of the information from the map, like the title up here, the names of the layers, and then configuration options, I believe, like whether there should be a attribute field down here or not, or a table down here or not. They pull all of those configuration options out into this this options tab, or sheet, I guess. So whenever I was showing this to someone last time, I put in the test edit, and now we can remove test edit. That's not really supposed to be there in the first place. This isn't really used anymore. It was kind of a weekend for a specific event. I don't think this map is used on a day-to-day basis. But when we reload, then you'll see that this removing that little test edit will change the map itself. And again, I think this is loading slow because of the overlays that we added, which are, in some ways, they're very common for most GIS applications. You see these overlays a lot, but this is a pretty lightweight solution where it's going to be loading all of these polygons into memory or into the browser at this moment from a static file. So it's not by any means the most efficient way to show a map that has a lot of complex polygons on it. But it has obviously a lot of great uses. But anyway, the test edits removed. All of that is just comes straight from this table or this sheet. You can see the logo information display. Where does the title display, like whether in the top left or top right, or whether it's off. Author name, we removed all that. Settings for the base map. What type of base map do you want? And intro pop-up text. So we made this complicated here, you can see, but it's HTML, which gets rendered, and perhaps, I guess, it only happens the first time you view it in a session, because I don't think it happened when I just refreshed, but that was that splash pop-up. So that's here. And then plenty of extra controls. I certainly won't go over all of these, but but these are all different configuration options for the map itself. We added these tables here called demographics. Oh, wait. Yeah, we modified their default overlay option. You see, we have three different sheets here called demographics 1, 2, or 1 and 2. We basically mimicked their optional overlay so that we could have multiple of these. In fact, if I remove this, we wanted multiple different neighborhood boundaries or different overlays. Neighborhood boundaries, which are the same, I guess, or they overlap and go along the census lines. So they kind of get like merged in with this youth population. And then council districts here. Not sure why we made white outlines, but at any rate, it's subtle, but the labels are nice there. So yeah, so there's extra ways you can configure this. And let's see here. I don't think I'll go too much more into this Google Sheet because we've messed around with it a little bit here. This is not exactly how it will come from the tutorial. But if you look at this, I think you see it's pretty well set up. They've done a very nice job of adding information, kind of code comments, so to speak, that help you out to understand how to use this. And so I won't go any further into the Google Sheet. And then the other piece of this that they use and utilize, and one reason I really like this whole thing is that they're pulling together, I guess we'll call it 3 different very good and very free data related resources out there. So the first one, Leaflet, which I'm not really talking a lot about today, but Leaflet is the JavaScript library that renders this map here. if you think about it, you have Leaflet on the web page, and then you tell Leaflet to use a base map. You tell it to use a layer, or in this case, a few different layers. You tell it how to color different markers, and Leaflet handles all of the zoom in and out, etc. So this combines Leaflet with the very easy and ubiquitous Google Sheets, which we're all familiar with. And again, like I mentioned earlier, Google Sheets are so good because you can share it with everybody. And so this can become a very crowdsourced type map. And then the final piece really is the trauma, or the name of this is Trauma Map for this specific project, but is GitHub itself. And so if you're not familiar with GitHub, the best way to summarize it is that it is a online repository of code bases, or it's like a management platform for code bases, and each code base then I guess is called a repository. So GitHub is hundreds of thousands of repositories, and you can create an account, and if I just go to my account, I have a lot of different repositories. And a repository is, you see here a folder, a couple of folders, and then a couple of files. It's just like a file folder on your computer. So you ultimately use GitHub by making it a mirror of a set of files on your computer, and then a set of files called a repository in GitHub. And this repository, or this is even easier. You don't actually need to set GitHub up or Git to work on your computer. You can do it all in the browser. Again, with a free account, which is very nice. And so in this case, what they've done is they've set this tutorial up to build from a template repository, which we'll see in a minute here. And what you do is you basically take their template repository and then copy it into your own GitHub account. And then you're off to the races, I guess. Then you're ready to start changing it, point it to your own Google Sheets, get your own API key for Google, which all of that's in the tutorial, and go ahead from there. So it combines these three things, Leaflet, Google Sheets, and GitHub. Oh, and I guess I should mention, GitHub has this functionality called GitHub Pages, which allows you to host a website for free. So you'll notice the URL here includes github.io. What we're viewing right here, this map that we're viewing right here, is built directly from, to be exactly correct, it's built exactly from this code right here. So this index file is the one that holds the map. This is the HTML file, etc. So we, in this case, we added these GeoJSON files to the repository. And GeoJSON, if you're not familiar, you could just swap out that term with shapefile or geopackage, etc. It's just another spatial data storage format. So we uploaded some GeoJSON files, and that's what's used to create these polygon layers here in the map. That you can, that's covered in the tutorial as well. It's not a, it doesn't have to be, you don't have to do that at all. You can remove all that. So combining these three, I think it's a really great use of these three different technologies, and it's a really good kind of exercise, especially if any of those three things you've heard about. Well, I'm sure you've used Google Sheets, I guess. But if you've heard about Leaflet and are curious about trying to use it, this would be one way to use it in at least a little bit, because you don't really have to write any JavaScript for this at all. Well, you don't have to write any JavaScript for this at all. You don't have to code at all. The most coding you would have to do is if you want, here we've written HTML tags to make kind of a more custom splash screen or the map subtitle. You don't have to do any of that. You actually don't need to write any code for any of this, which really comes back to this hands-on data visualization. I think it comes back to their whole philosophy is that there are a lot of free resources out there and a lot of obviously free data, but a lot of free platforms that you can combine and utilize to really do some cool new things for data visualization. Also, this is the tip of the iceberg. As you can tell, there's a lot of other things in here. And I haven't looked at, well, I haven't looked at anything really besides some of these here. And so that's about the little presentation I wanted to give in terms of explanation. I would be happy to kind of start going through this a little bit and talking through it, but maybe it'd be better if anyone has questions, just ask away. It's really up to, oh, I see there's maybe a chat.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask. You said it's kind of slow with multiple polygons. Is that a limitation of Leaflet or how the polygons are passed and loaded using the Leaflet platform?
Yeah, that's a great question. So here, to answer that, we'll do this. We'll open a new private window. We'll go to this, and then we'll open up the, I wish I just don't have two monitors set up right now. I'm having to dodge this whole. Also, someone wrote a chat, but I haven't, there we go. Yeah, okay. Good question, okay. Okay, so in short, the reason it's slow in this case is that we have these, let's see if it will show the size. We have these GeoJSON files. Okay, that's not very large. Okay, these are not that large. I was assuming it was because all of those were loaded directly in before before the map would display, and I was thinking that those would be larger files, but a few hundred kilobytes is not large in this case. So let's do the experiment. So I've opened up DevTools, which if you hit F12 in your browser, either Chrome or Firefox or anything, it'll open up this like tool panel here where you can basically track all of the activity that goes on in the page. So as we load it up, we can see everything happen. And we'll get some timing too. I wish I was more. There we go. This is one of those things that I know is doable. I just haven't done it for a while. But so we can see it basically shows us the load profile, I guess, for the whole page. So let's see what was taking so long. Well, this one takes a long time. Spreadsheets. Okay, well, that I don't even understand what's going on there. Okay, so answer A to your question is I'm not sure why it was taking so long. I thought it would be just this the size of those polygons, but we should be able to see here.
Yeah, what it looks like, I mean, from our understanding is that it took a while to hit Google and get the response. Google wasn't responding at first, and then to pull the data from the spreadsheets. So maybe it's the cross-site talking that's causing the delay.
Yeah, it does seem like that, but I also feel like I've used, that data tables or this tabletop. I wonder if that has to do with this bottom piece. Yeah, it did seem like that, but I've also made other maps that pull straight from Google Sheets. So I know that that isn't specifically the issue, that one part of pulling from Google Sheets. That doesn't really take extra long. So I'm not sure why in this case it is. But you're right, that's this right here. In this tabletop JS, that must be some plugin that helps with this.
So they can scrape all your data. It takes a while.
Yeah, it's got to record it all. It doesn't record it all. Yeah, so good question though. These ones that I was thinking might take a while took 0 time. So, all right, so forget that. Yeah, it wasn't the GeoJSON. I was thinking that those overlay layers would be kind of large.
It may just be intermittent network issues or something back and forth. I don't know if it always happens that way. Or...
The other thing is, you're right, it may be, there are a lot of pages here. So maybe it has something to do with pulling a lot of these pages too. Yeah, so that's a good question. And when it comes down to it, your other kind of underlying thing was what's, a good way to serve those polygon layers. Well, determining that those weren't specifically the problem. I think this is a fine way. Just having the single raw files next to it is probably the most common. So if you're doing this in GitHub, if you're doing anything in GitHub, actually, one nice thing is that it'll preview your GeoJSON files, which is kind of fun. So you can kind of see them here. This is just like, instead of looking at it in your file browser, it shows you a tiny map of it. So this is actually a pretty common way, I think, to store polygons that are of this size even, and then add them into web maps. But there are other much more heavyweight options for basically serving polygon layers like this. But yeah, any other questions or thoughts? Well, the other thing that earlier I was thinking it might be fun to just go through this whole thing, but that's obviously not going to happen now. And I feel like just giving the overview like I did gives a pretty good idea of all the pieces. I would say going through this with no experience would probably take, I don't know, 5 or 6 hours, maybe a little less. And one of the things that always trips me up is that you have to go into Google and make an API key basically for this little template to pull data from a Google Sheet. You need to pass an API key along with it so that Google can track how many times you try to use their API that pulls data from sheets. It's not tracking the data per se, it's tracking that requests are made. And that's just, it gets into like a disaster of Google developer menus, and it's very complicated. But I did do that recently using this template. Get your Google Sheets API key, and it works. It's just a little bit, it's a little buried and complicated. This Google APIs and service, it's complex. Google is a very, very large service provider for a lot of different services. So, great. Well, yeah, I could go back to Phil. I could go back to your question, like talk more generally about polygons, but maybe it'd be better. Could you just tell us a little about what you're thinking with Leaflet?
Yeah, basically, with the question I have is what are some open source map visualization things? I'm still thinking I'll go with Leaflet. I'll evaluate it to see if what I'm doing is going to work. But basically, like precision ag is just like data with agriculture with GIS and remote sensing, all kind of stuff. But what I'm working on is farmers have sensors on pretty much all their equipment now. So every second, every 5 times a second, whatever they have it set to, it records their position. And say they're harvesting cotton, it'll say, okay, well, at this moment in time and this location, everything's georeferenced. You harvested 10 pounds of cotton, and 5 pounds of cotton. So what you can do is basically overlay that on a map, and you can classify it different ways and show basically a heat map of like yield spatially and different things. So one thing I want to do is that, because I think farmers have a lot of data, but it's not really easy for them to use right now. Like John Deere has a proprietary thing, Case has a proprietary thing, but it's all like A or B, and it's a lot of them, I don't necessarily blame them, don't want to upload their data to that, but for some reason, some of them who don't like that will share it with us, so the good thing with that is we can use it for research and yield modeling and different things. The more data we have, the better our model accuracy generally. So basically what I want to do is let them either upload the map or give us their, say like John Deere access key, and we pull down automated from there and make those sorts of maps, just basically like, this is your yield over this field. This is your soil types over this field. These are your seeding rates over this field, and different things like that. So it won't be like a large area, but it'll be a lot of data points. Now, one thing I'm doing is kind of like a window function where it goes and aggregates the data into cells of 8 by 8 meters. So instead of like, 1 million points, it becomes like 10,000 points or something. But, it'll still be a pretty large volume of data. And each will be like a polygon or part of a multi-polygon, something like that.
Yeah, that's cool. The server options that I know of, let's see, Mapbox I've used, and you can upload your own data to Mapbox and basically style it however you want. And Mapbox is designed in a very at scale manner where if you'll upload, 10,000 points, it'll render as fast as 1 point because it tiles all the data that you upload. It's not, and so it works for that. It's not so much of a analysis option. It's like ArcGIS Online, for example, or GeoNode or a couple others. They have more built in that like allows some analysis, vector analysis. Mapbox is much more of a display, I feel like.
Yeah, and that's all I'm using it for. Like I'm doing all the analysis and correlation and that sort of thing on the back end.
Yeah, gotcha. Yeah. Another that I know is super big and I just don't have any personal experience is CartoDB.
Okay.
I don't know if others have used that. I'll just go to the website.
Cool. I appreciate the info, man. I want to figure it out before I write it and figure out, oh, this doesn't work.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not sure what you would get out of this for free per se, or at the level you want. So I have the other one that I've used a lot is called GeoServer. This one fits kind of squarely in the open source world. And it's specifically for doing what you're saying, like serving data and vector data. And you basically, but you could either, you can get a subscription, a few different services provide GeoServer as a hosted solution, basically, or you could set it up on your own server if you have that. It's a little bit of work. But that's like, it's basically, it creates a front end for your, for all sorts of data. And what's nice is that you can connect it to a PostGIS database, and you can connect that to QGIS. So you can basically if you start storing all of those data sets in a PostGIS database, which again, you can find a hosted solution for that, then you can kind of connect them all so that you are serving it out at scale as web tiles, basically. But then you're also able to upload and use all the QGIS editing tools on the same table, basically. That's a really common stack if you're going like the full open source route, I know.
Now, do you know, pretty much we're going to be hosting everything on like Azure cloud services, a lot for like scalability and things like that, but it's going to be a SQL Server database or, I forgot what they call their Cosmos database. I think I'm gonna use SQL Server database because I'm more familiar with that. But with this GeoServer, is it possible to interface with that, or is it limited strictly to?
It's a good question. I'm not sure.
I mean, I can look too, but
it's a front end piece that hosts a ton of different, or that can connect to a ton of different data stores, so to speak.
Okay.
So
yeah, so it's probably
is one really common one, but you can upload a shapefile or a raster, all kinds of data. So I'm not sure about the SQL Server, but I would recommend though looking into Postgres/PostGIS. It's kind of like like an analogous MySQL server. It uses SQL, but it's a big open source project, but it's really good for spatial because they have this PostGIS extension on it is really robust.
Okay.
And that's used a lot. So
thanks, Ben.
Yeah. Brendan, does that stuff, have you done anything like that with your drone projects?
With GeoServer?
Yeah, or just making web maps, I guess, out of the data, right? That's kind of what Philip's generally getting to, I think.
Yeah.
Sounds cool. I feel like I mentioned something I wanted to put in the chat, but I can't. Great. Yeah. Well, any other questions? I mean, next week we just have troubleshooting. Maybe Matt will come again with his progress in Antarctica.
I mean, I'm already right here, so.
Yeah. I butchered your last name earlier. Actually, I just didn't remember it.
I usually go by K. That's fine.
Okay, sorry about that. Apologies. Cool. Yeah, well, yeah, come on next time. It'd be cool to see what.
That's good. Okay.
Um,
Thanks, Adam.
yeah, you bet.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
thanks for the talk.
Sure. I guess I will eventually get this. We'll get this posted on the website. Maybe I'll try to cut out some of the end chatter, but put the video up. Yeah.
Is it odd if I can make a request? I just started getting into GitHub and using the Linux based computer. Could we possibly talk about sometime how to like set up, say, a repository for like QGIS, or how to download that, I should say?
Yeah.
That sounds like a good topic for troubleshooting day, right?
Yeah. It might not be super GIS-y, I guess. I would be happy to help you. Even now, maybe I'll stop the recording. But